This is the Daily Brief, one landmark court decision explained in plain English every day. Presented by FindCourtCases.com, this is your daily briefing on the law that shapes American life.
Today we are tackling a huge one, a single 1966 Supreme Court ruling that completely rewrote the script for every arrest in the entire country.
We're talking about Miranda v. Arizona.
Exactly. And let's just start with the stakes, not the facts. The core question was, well, it was terrifyingly simple.
What happens when the government locks you in a room and asks you to confess?
Right. What rights do you actually have in that moment?
Because before 1966, the answer to that question really depended on, who you were.
It depended on how educated you were, how much money you had, and frankly, how good the police were at applying psychological pressure.
So this case wasn't just about one man, Ernesto Miranda, and his conviction for kidnapping and rape.
No, not at all. It was about whether the Fifth Amendment's right to remain silent was a real practical thing or, just an idea on paper.
That's the tension, isn't it? If the court hadn't acted, that psychological coercion inside an interrogation room would have just continued, completely unchecked.
Absolutely. This ruling, for the first time, gave people a protective shield the second they were taken into custody. It's why it's probably the most famous legal concept in the world. You know these words, even if you're not a lawyer?
Okay, so let's start where the law really starts, with a human story. We have to understand the world before these warnings existed. Describe that environment, that interrogation room in the early 1960s. The court itself called it inherently intimidating.
It was a closed-door system, and it was designed for one thing: maximum psychological leverage.
What does that mean in practice?
It means police manuals from that time, which the court actually reviewed, taught specific tactics. Things like isolating the suspect completely. No family, no lawyer.
Creating a sense of helplessness.
Total helplessness. They'd minimize the crime, make a confession seem like the easy way out, or use the old good cop, bad cop routine. The whole setup was designed to wear you down.
A police-dominated atmosphere, as you said. It wasn't a conversation.
No, it was a pressure cooker. And if you were poor or uneducated or vulnerable in any way, the system was just overwhelmingly stacked against you.
Which brings us directly to the man at the center of it all, Ernesto Miranda. Who was he?
Miranda was, well, he was exactly the kind of person the system was stacked against. He was a poor man, legally indigent, with very limited schooling.
And he was arrested in Phoenix back in March of 1963.
That's right, accused of kidnapping and rape. The police pick him up, take him to the station, and two officers bring him into an interrogation room.
An isolated room.
An isolated room. And over the next 2 hours, he confesses. First an oral confession, then he writes out a short statement.
And he signs it.
He signs it. And the written statement even had this pre-printed clause on it, saying he gave it with full knowledge of his legal rights.
But that was the whole problem, wasn't it? Did he actually have full knowledge?
Well, at the trial, the officers admitted something stunning. They said, on the stand, that Miranda was not explicitly told two crucial things.
Which were?
He wasn't told he had the right to talk to a lawyer before they started asking questions, and he wasn't told he could have that lawyer present in the room with him during the questioning.
So if you don't even know you can have a lawyer right there in that moment, how can you possibly make an intelligent decision about whether to talk?
You can't. And that's the very question that took this case all the way to the Supreme Court. The lower court said, yeah, the confession seems voluntary enough.
But the Supreme Court saw something bigger.
They saw a vulnerable person, Miranda, convicted almost entirely on a statement he made without any real legal protection. They saw a systemic flaw.
And to prove just how systemic it was, they didn't just take Miranda's case, did they? They bundled it with 3 others.
Right. They consolidated it with cases from New York, California, and a federal case: Venera, Westover, and Stewart.
Why bring 4 different cases together?
Because it showed this wasn't just a Phoenix problem. It was happening everywhere. You had different states, different police tactics, interrogations that lasted for hours or even days.
State police, FBI agents, it didn't matter.
Exactly. The court realized they couldn't just rule on the specific details of one man's interrogation. They needed a clear, national, uniform rule.
So that brings us to the core legal question. Let's boil it down. The issue was basically whether the Fifth Amendment requires police to give mandatory warnings before they can question someone in custody.
That's it. The Fifth Amendment says you can't be compelled to be a witness against himself. The court was asking, when you're alone in a police station, is staying silent a real choice? Or is it compelled unless we do something to protect you?
You use the phrase custodial interrogation. We have to define that because that's the trigger, right? That's when Miranda clock starts ticking.
It is the trigger. And it means two things are happening at the same time. One, you are in custody. That means your freedom has been taken away in a significant way. You're not free to just get up and leave.
Okay, so you're detained.
Right. And two, you are being interrogated. The police are asking you questions that are likely to get an incriminating response.
So let me ask a practical question. If a cop pulls me over for speeding and asks, "Do you know how fast you were going? They haven't read me my rights." Is that a Miranda violation?
No, it's not. Because in a routine traffic stop, you're generally not considered to be in custody. You're being detained for a moment, but you expect to leave soon.
I see.
Miranda applies when they take you out of your car, put you in their car, take you to the station, when they take control of your environment and isolate you. That's what creates that psychological pressure the court was so worried about.
So once they have you in that isolated environment, they have to take steps to make sure your statement isn't forced.
Precisely. Which brings us to the ruling itself. Chief Justice Warren delivered the opinion, and they reversed the lower courts in Miranda's case and two of the others.
And what's the one-sentence takeaway from that holding? The core idea.
The core idea is this. The prosecution cannot use any statement from a custodial interrogation unless it can show that it used procedural safeguards to protect the Fifth Amendment privilege.
A constitutional requirement. And the court didn't just leave it at that. They spelled out exactly what those safeguards, the warnings, had to be.
They did. They laid out 4 specific mandatory warnings. First, you have the right to remain silent.
The big one.
Second, you have to be warned that anything you say can and will be used against you in court. That's the consequence.
Okay.
Third, you have the right to consult with an attorney and to have that attorney present during the interrogation.
So a lawyer in the room with you.
And fourth, and this is truly revolutionary, if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you at no cost.
That fourth one is huge. It makes the right to a lawyer real for someone like Ernesto Miranda who couldn't possibly afford one.
It levels the playing field. And they added an enforcement rule. If the suspect says they want to be silent or they want a lawyer, the interrogation must stop immediately.
And the government has the burden of proving that if you did talk, you did it voluntarily, knowingly, and intelligently.
A very high burden.
Okay, so let's dig into the why behind all this. Why did the court feel it had to create such a rigid, specific script? Why not just stick with the old system of looking at the totality of the circumstances to see if a confession was voluntary?
Because that old system just wasn't working. It was too subjective. It almost always ended with a judge giving the police the benefit of the doubt.
So it led to decades of this psychological coercion.
It did. The court said that the pressure inside that interrogation room is so overwhelming that only a clear, bright-line rule could possibly balance things out.
So instead of just telling the police, be fair, they gave them a script.
Exactly. You must follow this script. And in a way, that clarity helps everyone, police included, because now they know exactly what they have to do to make a confession hold up in court.
It's what's called a prophylactic rule, right? It's a procedure designed to protect the actual right.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's a constitutional procedure designed to safeguard the Fifth Amendment right. It's a buffer against coercion.
But we have to talk about the controversy. I mean, when this decision came down, police departments, politicians, they were furious. They said this would handcuff the police.
Although the backlash was immediate and intense. The argument was that this would stop people from confessing and make it impossible to solve crimes.
Was the court just ignoring those very real concerns?
Not at all. Chief Justice Warren's opinion directly addressed it. They acknowledged that these rules might create a burden for law enforcement. But their answer was essentially the Constitution requires it.
And they had an example to back it up.
They did. They pointed straight at the FBI.
The FBI?
Yes. The FBI already had a policy in place that was very similar to the Miranda warnings. They already warned suspects of their right to silence and right to counsel.
So the argument was, if the nation's top law enforcement agency can do its job effectively with these rules, why can't local police?
Precisely. The FBI focused on building cases through investigation and evidence. The court was basically telling state and local police that they needed to do the same, to shift from relying on quick confessions to relying on solid investigative work. Your constitutional rights are more important than a convenient conviction.
That's a fundamental shift. Let's connect this to today. What's the practical day-to-day impact of this ruling?
The most immediate impact is the exclusionary principle. It's simple. If the police get a statement from you in custody without giving the warnings, that statement is excluded.
It can't be used against you in trial.
It's thrown out. And that creates a massive, powerful incentive for every single police officer to get it right, every single time.
It turns a loose practice into a constitutional requirement. And the fight over this is still happening, isn't it?
All the time. The debate today isn't so much about if the warning should be read, but about the waiver. Was the waiver of those rights truly knowing and intelligent?
What do you mean?
Well, you see cases involving juveniles or people with mental health issues or someone who doesn't speak English well. The question is always, did that specific person in that specific situation truly understand the 4 rights they were giving up?
So the system is still trying to protect the most vulnerable people, just like it was originally meant to protect someone like Ernesto Miranda.
Yes, it remains the standard we use to measure the balance between the power of the state and the rights of the individual. It forces the government to build its case with evidence, not just by coercing a confession out of someone in a small room.
It preserves the integrity of that adversarial system.
It really does. And, that brings us to the final thought we should leave you with. The real power of the Miranda warnings is their simplicity.
They're just 4 simple sentences.
Anyone can understand them. And that leads to a final question. What if the court had not done this?
What if they had just issued some vague ruling saying police must avoid too much psychological pressure?
Imagine the chaos. Every single trial would become this subjective fight over whether an officer smiled the wrong way or if the room was too intimidating.
It would be impossible to define.
Completely. The clarity of the Miranda rule removes all that guesswork. It gives you, the individual, a practical tool, the right to say, I want to be silent, or I want a lawyer, to take back some control in what is probably the most high-pressure situation of your life. That simple script is a guarantee of dignity.
You've been listening to The Daily Brief, one landmark court decision explained in plain English every day. Presented by FindCourtCases.com, this is your daily briefing on the law that shapes American life. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow with the next case.